The disgraced former President Donald Trump's transition team has reportedly sidestepped the standard Federal Bureau of Investigation background checks for some controversial cabinet nominees, opting instead for private investigators. This move minimizes the chances of nominees being rejected during Senate confirmation due to past transgressions or conflicts of interest. FBI vetting, a tradition dating back to the early Cold War, typically assesses nominees for their criminal record or conflicts of interest or issues that could disqualify them from receiving security clearances. The decision to bypass this process aligns with a pre-election memo from Trump's legal advisors and reflects Trump's enduring suspicion of the FBI, which he has repeatedly accused, without any evidence, of being part of a deep state working against him. This follows controversy surrounding three of Trump's key appointees: Matt Gaetz for Attorney General, Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Director of the Department of Health and Human Services. Matt Gaetz, nominated for Attorney General, has faced scrutiny over a Department of Justice investigation into sex trafficking allegations, which concluded without charges. Additionally, a related House Ethics Committee inquiry was halted when Matt Gaetz resigned, effectively delaying its report. Calls for it to be released have been rejected from the House Speaker, Mike Johnson. Tulsi Gabbard, Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence, has been criticized for alleged ties to the Kremlin and pro-Russian rhetoric, potentially complicating her ability to access sensitive national security information. She, of course, would be responsible for preparing the president's daily security briefing, which famously Trump never read when he was president last time, saying if there was something important, they would tell me about it. RFK Jr., leading the Department of Health, has publicly discussed past struggles with drug addiction, raising questions about his suitability for the role, not to mention his vaccine skepticism and the conspiracies that he spreads about vaccines generally. It remains unclear which nominees have been exempt from FBI scrutiny. It is just remarkable that this is something that can be sidestepped at the will of the president-elect. Gaetz, an outspoken critic of the FBI, recently reaffirmed his hostility on social media, calling for the abolition of agencies like the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives. He wrote, "We ought to have a full-court press against this weaponized government that has been turned against our people." Refusing an FBI background check doesn't entirely preclude vetting. Senate-led reviews can be conducted, though investigators may face limitations if nominees do not consent to provide information. Background checks are essential for nominees to gain the security clearance needed to handle classified information. The Attorney General, for example, must have clearance to oversee federal law enforcement effectively. And this is what ultimately will make America less safe under a Donald Trump administration, because our foes are fully aware of these individuals, their vulnerabilities, and their unscrupulous connections. Trump, it seems, will probably override the standard vetting process by directly ordering security clearances for his appointees, as he did during his first presidency. Notably, a whistleblower disclosed that Trump granted security clearances to around 25 individuals whose applications were initially flagged for national security concerns. And of course, one might question how the president-elect himself qualifies for his role in office, considering he himself is a convicted felon, a business fraudster who went bankrupt 6 times, and of course an adjudicated rapist, as well as a very public insurrectionist who appeared to enjoy watching his own political coup play out on television. Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment states, "No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof." Giving COVID testing machines to Vladimir Putin surely should have disqualified Donald Trump earlier on. Congress, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, could remove such disability. This means, theoretically at least, that officials who participate in or encourage a rebellion face both removal from office and a ban from holding state and federal offices in the future. A little bit like Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, who tried to emulate Donald Trump's insurrection and was barred from holding office for 8 years. No such luck in America. How disqualification works under the 14th Amendment has never been clear. Yes, an impeachment could disqualify someone from holding public office in the future on 2 conditions: if a court convicts them and if Congress applies such a punishment. However, this is separate from disqualification from holding office under the 14th Amendment. Under Sections 3 and 5 of the 14th, Congress can bar someone from holding office, but unlike an impeachment conviction, the courts can overturn that decision. He was impeached twice. Surely the second one might have been enough to warrant his disqualification from even being on the ballot and running for president. There is some argument that Section 5 of the 14th Amendment does require conviction before disqualification. Section 5 grants Congress the power to enforce the amendment by appropriate legislation. But none of that matters anymore, as it appears that the Republicans have won both houses and the presidency. After adopting the 14th Amendment, Congress passed legislation that criminalized insurrection. Today, this law is codified in 18 U.S. Code 2383. A conviction under this statute will lead to being ineligible from federal office. Now, this could form the basis for a Supreme Court ruling that a person not convicted of the crime of insurrection cannot be disqualified under Section 3. To guarantee that this clause could not be used in the case of Donald Trump, though, the Trump-appointed MAGA Supreme Court ruled that he cannot be prosecuted for actions that were within his constitutional powers as president, in the landmark decision recognizing for the first time any form of presidential immunity from prosecution. The justices, in a 6-3 ruling authored by Chief Justice John Roberts, threw out a lower court's decision that had rejected Trump's claim of immunity from federal criminal charges involving his efforts to undo his election loss to Joe Biden in 2020. The 6 conservative justices were in the majority, whilst its 3 liberal members dissented. We conclude that under our constitutional structure of separated powers, they said, the nature of presidential power requires that a former president have some immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts during his tenure in office, John Roberts wrote. The ruling marked the first time since the nation's 18th century founding that the Supreme Court has declared that former presidents may be shielded from criminal charges in any instance, and in addition to Trump's win, shielded him from the multiple legal cases he was being investigated for, including the theft of national security documents, election interference, and the insurrection itself. Proof that friends in high places offer protections for even the most hardened criminals. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5-Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with MeidasTouch.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.